You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
Late one night at Los Angeles' notorious Cecil Hotel, maintenance worker Daniel Ruiz begins investigating strange disturbances, flickering lights, bizarre sounds, and malfunctioning elevators. But when Daniel digs deeper into the hotel's sinister past, he realizes he's not alone. Whispered legends of missing guests and dark entities linger in every shadowed hallway. Soon, Daniel finds himself confronting a terrifying force connected to a real-life unsolved mystery. As reality twists around him, Daniel's desperate search plunges him into a nightmare beyond comprehension. Can he uncover the truth hidden within the Cecil's darkest secrets, or will the hotel claim another victim? If you dare to uncover the chilling mysteries lurking in plain sight, subscribe now. Turn notifications on, because at the Cecil Hotel, some secrets refuse to stay buried. Daniel's lungs burned as he thrashed in the pitch-black water. He tried to scream, but only a muffled gurgle escaped into the stagnant darkness. The heavy metal walls of the tank pressed in around him. His fingertips scraped uselessly at the slick, curved sides as he struggled to keep his head above water. Each frantic movement sent echoes thudding against the steel, a desperate drum in the void. And beneath him, something cold and unyielding wrapped around his ankle, tugging, pulling him down. Earlier that evening, night had fallen over downtown Los Angeles. Outside the Cecil Hotel, sirens wailed in the distance and a neon flicker from a neighboring pawn shop danced across the sidewalk. Inside, Daniel Ruiz wiped his brow with a shaky hand as he closed the maintenance closet. It was just past midnight, and his shift was nearly over, or so he hoped. As a 34-year-old maintenance worker at the infamous Cecil Hotel, Daniel had seen his share of long, strange nights. He had taken the job for steady pay, never mind the building's grisly reputation. But tonight, an uneasy feeling gnawed at him like never before. This place, he knew, was no ordinary hotel. Nearly a century of tragedy clung to its faded Art Deco halls like a stain. Locals whispered that the Cecil was cursed. America's Hotel Death, they called it. Daniel tried not to think about the tales, the suicides from upper-floor windows, the unsolved murders, the women who never checked out. He tried to ignore the shiver that crept up his spine whenever he passed room 712, remembering the story of Pigeon Goldie Osgood, a sweet old woman found brutally murdered there in 1964, her killer never found. And he tried to forget that a serial killer once prowled these very halls. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, had lived on the 14th floor during his bloody 1985 rampage, strolling in each night half naked and covered in the blood of strangers. Evil had made its home here for decades, but of all the dark legends surrounding the Cecil, none unsettled Daniel more than the recent mystery of Coraline Rivers. Just a few weeks ago, the 21-year-old student had vanished while staying on the 5th floor. The whole city was talking about it. Earlier that day, Daniel had lingered in the lobby after his shift meeting, watching the loop of the surveillance video the police released. Footage from the Cecil's old elevator that captured Coraline's final moments. In the grainy video, the young woman entered the elevator late one night, alone. The doors refused to close. Coraline pressed button after button for every floor, but the elevator stayed still. She peeked into the hallway, hiding in the corner as if someone unseen pursued her. At one point, her arm waved peculiarly, her hand forming distorted shapes in the air, as though she were talking to somebody invisible just outside. Daniel remembered the way a chill ran through him when he first saw it, her odd movements, the eerie half-step she took out into the hallway, and the fact that whoever, or whatever she seemed to be addressing, wasn't caught on camera at all. Eventually, Coraline Rivers walked away down the hall, and the elevator doors slid shut as if nothing had happened. She was never seen alive again. Daniel shook off the memory and refocused on his duties. He was a rational man, not one to jump at shadows. Still, the internet theories swirling around Coraline's disappearance had gotten under his skin. People speculated about everything from a murderous staff member to a ghost haunting the hotel. One wild story even suggested Coraline had been playing some Korean elevator game to reach another dimension, accidentally unleashing a demon. Daniel sighed. Ghosts, demons. What nonsense, he told himself for the 100th time. He didn't believe in any of it. He clipped his huge ring of keys to his belt and started his nightly round through the building's labyrinthine corridors. The aging fluorescent lights buzzed quietly overhead as he walked the 4th floor hallway, past rows of battered wooden doors. The patterned carpet, once red and gold, was now a threadbare muddle of brownish tones. The air smelled of old cigarette smoke and something sour, maybe the plumbing acting up again. Daniel made a mental note to check the pipes in the basement before clocking out. At the far end of the hall, one light bulb flickered. Daniel squinted at it. That fixture had been glitchy all week. He fetched the stepladder from a corner and climbed up to tighten the bulb. The bulb flashed and burst in his hand, plunging the corridor into dim shadow. "Damn it!" he yelped, nearly falling off the ladder. Tiny shards tinkled onto the floor. As he regained his balance, Daniel's heart gave a nervous flutter. Calm down, he chided himself. It's just an old bulb. Still, in the sudden gloom, the hallway felt different, strange and stretched. At the edges of the darkness, shapes seemed to shift. He descended the ladder and crunch, his boot crinkled glass. The sound echoed down the silent hall. As Daniel bent to sweep the shards aside, he heard something. A gentle patter like bare feet on carpet coming from around the corner. "Hello?" Daniel called, his voice low. He remembered that a few rooms on this floor were vacant. Perhaps a homeless person from Skid Row had snuck in again, or a lost guest was wandering. He clicked on his flashlight and shone it down the intersecting corridor. The beam cut through the dust, dancing in the air. Clicks. Footstop. No one. The far end of the adjacent hallway was empty, only the patterned wallpaper and a chipped exit sign above the stairwell door. The footsteps ceased as suddenly as they'd begun. Daniel's pulse throbbed in his ears. Maybe I imagined it, he thought. These late shifts were getting to him. He turned back and almost laughed at himself. He was jumpy tonight. Too many ghost stories. He swept up the broken bulb quietly and descended to the lobby to toss it out. The lobby was mostly quiet at this hour, lit by a grand chandelier that cast phantom shapes across the marble floor. Behind the front desk, the night clerk, Reggie, was sipping coffee and scrolling on his phone. He glanced up. "You good, Dee? You look like you've seen a ghost." Reggie chuckled, but his joke fell flat in the empty lobby. Daniel forced a grin. "I'm fine, just tired." He hesitated, then added, "Any word from the cops today? About that girl? Coraline?" Reggie shook his head, the smile fading. "Nothing. Still missing. Her parents are in town, I heard." He sighed, drumming his fingers on the desk. "Cops came through again, asked to check some supply closets and unused rooms. It's like she vanished into thin air." Vanished. Daniel felt a faint chill. He thought of the surveillance video again, Coraline's bizarre behavior in the elevator. "You ever see anyone with her on the cameras? Other than that one video?" "Nah," Reggie muttered, shuffling some papers. "They went over all the footage. Nothing. Just that elevator clip that went viral. Creepy stuff." He raised an eyebrow. "You know, some people online think the hotel's haunted, right? They think a ghost got her." Daniel rolled his eyes, trying to play it off. "I've heard. People have wild imaginations." He reached for the trash can behind the desk to empty his dustpan, and as he did, he noticed Reggie's coffee. It was black as tar. "How's the coffee tonight?" Reggie grimaced. "Tastes off. Water's been funky. A couple guests complained their water's coming out dark. Manager thinks the old pipes are rusting again." He nodded toward the maintenance log on the counter. Sure enough, Daniel saw the note in his own pencil scrawl from earlier. "Check water pressure. Low reports from 3rd, 4th floor. Possible sediment?" Next to it, another note in red ink from the manager. "Check rooftop tanks in AM." Daniel pursed his lips. The water issues had gotten worse this week. Low pressure, odd colour. One guest even said the tap water tasted funny. He'd chalked it up to old pipes, but now a hollow feeling bloomed in his stomach. The rooftop gravity-fed water tanks should last decades, but maybe a filter was busted or some animal got in and died. It had happened in other old buildings. The thought made him a little queasy. "I'll take a look tonight," Daniel said impulsively. No point waiting till morning if people are upset. The faster he fixed it, the faster those eerie feelings might go away. Work always grounded him. Reggie shrugged. "Rather you than me, man. I hate that roof. Gives me the creeps." "Why?" Daniel asked, curious. The clerk lowered his voice. "Ever been up there at night? It's quiet, too quiet and cold. You just feel, I don't know, watched. Maybe it's just all the crap that's happened here." He tapped the desk where an old newspaper clipping was taped under the glass, a yellowed headline about some suicide at the hotel in the 60s. "Place has bad energy, you know. I wouldn't go up alone." Daniel mustered a confident smirk he didn't feel. "I'll be fine. I don't scare easy." He tossed the glass shards in the trash and headed toward the back offices. "Radio me if anything comes up." Reggie gave a little two-finger salute and went back to his phone. As Daniel walked away, he heard the clerk humming to himself, the tune echoing faintly in the vast lobby. Back in the bowels of the hotel, Daniel grabbed his heavy maglite flashlight, a toolkit, and the ring of keys that granted him access to even the most forgotten corners of the Cecil. If he was going up on the roof, he'd need the passcode for the alarm too. He flipped through the ragged maintenance binder until he found it, a 4-digit code scribbled next to roof access alarm. The note below made him pause. "Keep locked. Only use for maintenance. Alarm will sound at security if door opened without code." The code in hand, Daniel made his way to the elevators. The old-fashioned bronze doors gleamed dully, reflecting his anxious face. He pressed the up button. The same elevator from that video, he realized. The one Coraline had been in. A small shiver of apprehension wormed through his chest. The doors slid open and Daniel stepped into the elevator car, which groaned underfoot. He hit the button for the 14th floor, the highest floor before the roof. The fluorescent light inside flickered as the elevator jolted upward. For a moment, Daniel's mind played tricks on him. In the mirror-polished doors, he almost thought he saw a shape standing behind him. He spun around. Nothing. Only an empty elevator and his own wide-eyed reflection in the brass walls. He exhaled slowly. The car rattled and stopped at the 14th floor with a lurch. The doors, however, did not open. Daniel frowned and jabbed the door open button. Nothing happened. Doors stuck. A memory of Coraline's video flashed in his head, the doors staying stubbornly open for her, as if obeying an unseen hand. Now here he was, doors stuck closed. "Come on," he muttered, pressing the button again. Still nothing. He pressed 14 again, then 13. The panel's bland buttons stared back at him. With a metallic groan, the elevator suddenly resumed moving, but upward. No, Daniel whispered as the display flickered and jumped past 14. The car shuddered and came to rest. The indicator read 15. That was impossible. There was no 15th floor in the Cecil. It only had 14 stories. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. A frigid draft wafted in, carrying the faint smell of mildew. Beyond the threshold was darkness. The lights on this floor, the mystery 15th floor, seemed to be out. Only a very faint, flickering glow came from down the hall, as if from a dying light bulb. He raised his flashlight and shone it out of the elevator. The beam revealed a hallway that looked similar to the others in the hotel, but subtly wrong. The wallpaper pattern was older, from another era. The carpet was a threadbare green design he didn't recognize. Several doors down the corridor hung open, yawning black, and the air thinner, colder. Daniel's skin prickled. He knew every inch of this building, yet he had no idea what this place was. He stepped out of the elevator slowly, heart pounding. Behind him, the elevator remained open, a dim light in an ocean of dark. "Hello?" he called softly, teeth chattering. Only his echo answered. As he inched forward, Daniel saw that at the far end the hall ended in a large window. Through it he glimpsed the night sky. Were they above the 14th floor? Am I on the roof access level? He wondered in confusion. But there was no roof-level hallway like this, only a stairwell and a machine room. His flashlight passed over the nearest open doorway on his left. The number on the door was 214. He blinked. Room 214. That would be the second floor, not at anywhere near here. None of it made sense. Daniel froze. In the silence, he could hear a faint drip coming from inside, like a leaking pipe or faucet. Summoning what little courage he had, Daniel took a step toward the open door of room 214. The door itself quivered lightly, as if something had brushed against it. He nudged it with his flashlight. Inside, the room was dark, but the corridor's faint glow revealed enough. It was identical to the Cecil's standard single rooms, an old bed frame, dresser, a mirror on the wall. The mirror caught the light, and for a moment, Daniel thought he saw movement in its reflection. He aimed the flashlight directly at it. The glass was cracked and dirty, reflecting only a distorted shape. Was that him? He couldn't tell. The dripping sound grew louder, drawing his attention to the bathroom door slightly ajar within the room. A sickly, wet sound, like something soaked dragging across tile, slithered to his ears. Daniel's stomach churned. He took a step back into the hall. Nope, not going in there. Every instinct screamed to get back to the elevator. Suddenly, a shadow darted in the corner of his vision. Daniel whipped around. Down the hall, just beyond the elevator, a figure stood. The lights flickered overhead, and for an instant, the figure was illuminated. It was a young woman. She wore a red jacket and black shorts, dripping water onto the carpet. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, hair hanging down, obscuring her face. "Coraline?" Daniel breathed before he could stop himself. The woman's shoulders twitched at the name. Slowly, she began to shamble toward him. With each step into the light, Daniel could see her more clearly. It was Coraline Rivers, the missing girl, her clothes clinging to her thin frame, soaked. Her skin was a pale greenish hue. As she lifted her face, Daniel's blood turned to ice. Her eyes were milky, lifeless, fixed on him in a blank stare. Her lips parted, and a guttural whisper crawled out, "Help me." Daniel stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. "Jesus Christ!" he rasped, raising a hand instinctively. She was only a few yards away now, moving with a jerky gait as if her limbs were bending wrong. In the dim light, her mouth pulled into a strange, lopsided grin. Or was it a grimace? Her lips moved again, and this time Daniel heard her clearly, a wet gurgle underlying her words. "Help me, please." Some buried reflex as a father of two kicked in. Despite his terror, Daniel stepped forward, arm out. "I'll help you," he whispered. But even as he said it, a voice in his head screamed that something was horribly wrong. Coraline Rivers was dead. He felt sure of it in his gut. She couldn't be here. This had to be something else wearing her face. She was close enough that he could smell the rot and stagnant water on her. Daniel gagged. Coraline's head twitched rapidly, cracking to one side. "Help me out," she croaked, and her voice distorted on the last word, becoming deeper, a bubbling growl that did not sound human. Her clouded eyes suddenly rolled back entirely white. Daniel's nerve broke. He bolted sideways for the elevator, which still sat open behind the apparition. In 2 long strides, he cleared the distance, but the doors abruptly slammed shut with a metallic clang. "No!" He frantically hit the call button. The button's light flickered uselessly. The elevator wasn't going to save him. Behind him, the wet footsteps turned into a sprint. He heard water splattering as she rushed at him. Without looking back, Daniel dashed to the emergency stairwell door just a few feet away. To his amazement, it opened. Unlocked, no alarm sounding. He yanked it open, slipped into the stairwell and slammed it behind him. In the gap under the door, he saw shadows and then watery footsteps pooling out from the 15th floor hallway into a puddle at the threshold. The thing that looked like Coraline didn't try to follow into the stairwell. Not yet. Panting, Daniel realized he somehow was indeed at the top landing, because one flight of metal stairs above was the roof access door. Its red exit sign cast a dim glow. He stumbled up the steps, heart hammering against his ribs. The roof, if he could get outside, maybe he could climb down the fire escape, or at least scream for help to the street. His shaking fingers fumbled the alarm code into the rusted keypad. The green light flickered. He shoved the door open and burst out onto the rooftop. A cold, damp breeze greeted him. The sounds of the city, honking cars, distant shouts, wafted up, reassuringly real. For a moment, Daniel just stood, gulping air, trying to clear the horror from his mind. Did that just happen? Was he hallucinating? He cast a glance back at the stairwell. No sign of her. The door had swung shut behind him, and from this side, he had to turn the knob to check if it locked. It hadn't. The stairwell yawned dark and empty. Daniel took a few shaky steps away, out onto the flat tar and gravel rooftop. The winter night sky was overcast, a dull reddish glow from the city reflected in the clouds. He flicked on his flashlight again and turned in a circle. The roof of the Cecil Hotel was largely barren, just a few pipes, the elevator machine room housing, and on the far side the 4 large water tanks, each looming about 8 feet tall and lined up like silent soldiers. In the weak ambient light, they were hulking black silhouettes against the sky. Water tanks. He recalled his purpose in coming up here in the first place. Was it possible? A terrible thought formed. No, don't even think it. But he had just seen something, wearing Coraline's face, and Coraline had never been found. A growing dread told him where she might be. He forced himself to move forward, crunching over the gravel. Every instinct told him to run away, to get off this roof and never look back. But if there was a chance Coraline Rivers was truly here, if she was somehow alive and in need of help, he had to know. The first tank's metal ladder was cold under his hand as he climbed up. His boots slipped a bit on the rungs slick with dew. He lifted the heavy hatch lid and recoiled at the smell that hit him. It was the stench of decay, sweet and foul. Fighting the urge to vomit, Daniel shone his flashlight down into the open cylinder. The water was about 4 feet below the hatch. The beam danced on the agitated surface. At first, he saw nothing but his own reflection rippling. But then, over in the corner, something pale broke the surface. It was a human arm, floating. God, no. Daniel choked. His worst fear realized. Coraline's body was in the tank. He could see her now as his eyes adjusted. The outline of a young woman floating face up, her long hair spread out like a dark halo, skin bloated and greenish under the water. She was naked, her clothing indistinctly tangled around her. For an instant, Daniel was struck by grief and pity. The poor girl had been here all along, decomposing in the water that unsuspecting guests had been drinking and bathing in. The thought made him retch. His flashlight trembled in his hand, its beam skittering over Coraline's blank face. Her eyes were slightly open, the same milky white he had seen in the apparition downstairs. Daniel realized with a start that the ghost, if that's what it was, had led him here. She wanted to be found. "I'm sorry," he whispered hoarsely into the tank, not even sure who he was apologizing to. He fumbled for his radio to call down to Reggie, to tell him what? That he found her body? That some ghost led him to it? His mind swam in confusion and horror. Before he could pull the radio free, a blistering pain exploded in his ankle. Something had yanked him from below, so hard that his shin slammed against the hatch rim. Daniel screamed. Ah! His flashlight tumbled from his grip, plunking into the water. In the sudden darkness, panic seized him. He felt an icy, vice-like grip around his ankle, pulling. The next thing he knew, he was sliding headfirst through the hatch. He howled, scrambling for purchase, but the smooth metal offered nothing. In seconds, he was plunged into the frigid water. The shock of it nearly made him inhale, but he clamped his mouth shut. Underwater, blinded, he kicked and fought. The grip on his ankle did not relent. It dragged him deeper. His back brushed the bottom of the tank as he was pulled the length of it. In the murky gloom, Daniel's flailing hand struck something soft. His fingers closed around what felt like a hand, small, limp. Coraline's hand? The thought made him want to recoil, but it slipped away in the churning water. His lungs were already burning. He had to surface now. Daniel twisted, wrenching his foot free of the icy grasp by sheer adrenaline. He swam desperately upward and broke the surface, gasping. In the sliver of moonlight from the open hatch, he could see the rim above, just a few feet. He reached up, fingers scrabbling at the slick side. If he could just hook his arm over the edge. Suddenly, pressure bore down on his shoulders. He was forced underwater again by an unseen force. Water flooded his mouth, his nose. He was choking, flailing. Daniel's mind screamed in panic as he was held under. In the warped, muffled silence of the tank, he heard a voice, a whisper that echoed inside his head as much as in his ears. "Stay with me." It sounded like Coraline, but distorted, gurgling, as if spoken through drowning lungs. He thrashed, managing to twist around in the water. Through the murk, a face loomed inches from his, a pale oval with faintly glowing eyes. Coraline's bloated face, lips peeled back from waterlogged teeth, hair swaying around her like black seaweed. Yet her eyes stared through him, empty of life. The sight filled Daniel with primordial terror. He tried to scream, but icy water rushed down his throat. He could see nothing now. Dark spots swarmed his vision. He kicked and pushed, fighting toward the surface once more. His hand broke into the cold night air, clawing desperately. Fingertips hooked over the rim of the hatch. Finally. With the last of his strength, Daniel pulled his head above water and gulped sweet air. He tried to haul himself out, but something latched onto his foot again, nearly yanking his grip loose. Daniel cried out, adrenaline surging. He kicked blindly behind him. His heel connected with something solid, perhaps the tank wall, and the hold released. With a mighty, trembling effort, Daniel heaved half his torso out of the tank, rolling onto the platform. He was out, chest heaving. He crawled away from the open hatch, every limb shaking violently. He could hardly think, but as he tried to stand, a wet hand burst out of the hatch behind him, clamping around his boot. "Let go!" Daniel screamed, kicking frantically. The grip was impossibly strong, wrenching him back toward the gaping hole. Another hand emerged, skeletal and slimy, then a head and upper body. Coraline's swollen corpse was climbing out, her dead eyes fixed on Daniel. Water poured off of her as she rose, inch by unnatural inch, dragging her bloated form onto the platform. Daniel scrambled backward, crawling on all fours. This thing should not be moving, should not be grasping him with blue, dead fingers. He watched in morbid horror as Coraline's corpse pulled itself fully out of the tank, collapsing onto the wet concrete. Her limbs twitched, then slowly pushed up. She stood, hunched and broken, water spilling from her slack jaw. In the faint light, Daniel could see her better now. Patches of her skin had peeled, revealing greenish flesh. Her dark hair hung straight over her shoulders, and her head lolled at an odd angle where her neck seemed partially bent. Yet still, she took one staggering step toward him, then another. Daniel was frozen in terror, unable to find his footing to run. Coraline's corpse opened its mouth wider than humanly possible, the jaw cracking. From deep within her, that same distorted voice gurgled, "Stay with me." Each word was a watery choke. With the final word, a flood of putrid water gushed from her mouth. Daniel's resolve snapped. He lunged to his feet and spun, intent on sprinting to the rooftop door. But the instant he turned, he slammed into another figure standing right behind him. He bounced back, startled. It was a man, tall and dripping wet. Daniel's heart might have stopped at that moment. He recognized the man's face from old lobby photographs. It was Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker himself, eyes black and glittering, a predatory grin splitting his gaunt face. Ramirez's hands shot out and clamped onto Daniel's arms with crushing force. And Ramirez's visage flickered, then changed. The man restraining him was now someone else, an older gentleman, nose bleeding and eyes sad. He mouthed the words, "I jumped," and suddenly his form warped into yet another shape. A woman screaming, falling backward as if from a height. She vanished, and another replaced her. Daniel gaped in sheer horror. They were all around him now, ghostly shapes emerging from the darkness at the roof's edges. Transparent figures, their faces bloated, bruised or bleeding, eyes full of pain. A chorus of voices, whispering, weeping, pleading, filled the air. These were the Cecil's dead. Decades of suicides and victims drawn to him in a ghastly congregation. He was surrounded. Coraline's corpse reached Daniel now. Her icy fingers slid over his shoulders from behind. He felt her waterlogged cheek press against the back of his head in a mockery of an embrace. "Stay, forever," she gurgled into his ear in that dual voice, hers and something else beneath it, many voices together. Daniel's scream never had the chance to escape. In a frenzy of panic, he lurched forward, breaking free from the phantom grip of the ghosts for one blessed second. He ran, or tried to run. His ankle gave out, sending him sprawling. He had a split-second glimpse of the roof's edge far ahead and the street stories below. He almost thought leaping off might be a mercy compared to what was behind him, but he would never reach it. A dozen cold hands seized Daniel and lifted him like he weighed nothing. The night air whipped around him as those hands dragged him back toward the open water tank. Daniel struggled wildly, but he was helpless in their grasp. Over his shoulder he saw Coraline's dead eyes watching, and behind her more spectres pressed in, grinning with rotten mouths, eye sockets hollow. Together, they forced Daniel up the ladder's platform. "No, please," he begged, tears mixing with the filthy water dripping down his face. He kicked against empty air, digging his nails into the metal railing. It was no use. The last thing Daniel saw was a pale arm riddled with bloated flesh, swinging toward him. Something cracked against his skull, maybe the flashlight he'd dropped, hurled by an unseen hand. The world exploded into sparks, then blackness. He was unconscious before his body hit the water. Morning brought a grey dawn over the Cecil Hotel's rooftop. Raindrops from a brief drizzle beaded on the metal water tanks. All was quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city stirring and the steady drip of water from a loose hatch. At 10 a.m., a crew of police officers and firefighters swarmed the roof. They had responded to reports of a missing maintenance man and something even more ominous. Floating in the second water tank, face up through the open hatch, they found the body of Coraline Rivers, the missing student whose disappearance had confounded investigators for weeks. The young woman's corpse was bloated and eerily serene in death. But Coraline was not alone in that tank. Clinging to her as if in a final, desperate embrace was the corpse of a man in a maintenance uniform. When firefighters dragged the bodies out, one veteran retched at the grotesque sight. The man's face was contorted in terror, his fingers still coiled around Coraline's arm. It was Daniel. The official report would later state that Daniel Ruiz died by accidental drowning, likely in a futile attempt to rescue Coraline Rivers. But whispers among the Cecil staff told a different story, one of malevolent forces in the hotel's dark corners, of something that lured Daniel to the roof that night. They say if you wander the Cecil's halls in the dead of night, you can still hear a faint dripping and the echo of desperate knocking on metal, as if someone inside the walls is begging to get out. And sometimes, in the silence between midnight and dawn, the elevator runs by itself, doors opening on an empty 14th floor, or maybe some hidden 15th. Few dare to peek. Those who do have claimed to see wet footprints that appear out of nowhere, and the reflection of a smiling, waterlogged face just behind their shoulder. The Cecil Hotel keeps its secrets, and some guests never leave. Some mysteries are better left buried in darkness.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained, and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.